The emergency lights painted Vivienne Cross red when she kissed me. Not soft red. Not romantic red. The hard, pulsing color hotels reserved for fire alarms, locked stairwells, and instructions no one reads until something has already gone wrong. Outside the windows of the executive lounge, 47 floors of the Meridian House disappeared into a citywide blackout. Snow struck the glass in sharp white bursts. The streets below were dark except for stalled headlights and the blue flicker of emergency vehicles trying to force their way through traffic. The entire hotel had been evacuated. Everyone had gone home. Everyone except my boss and me. Vivienne's fingers tightened around mine. "Tell me to stop," she said. Her voice was lower than I had ever heard it during the 4 years I had worked for her. There was no boardroom precision in it. No command. Just a question she was almost afraid to ask. I should have told her yes. I should have remembered that she was the CEO of Cross House Hotels, that my name appeared 5 levels below hers on the company directory, and that one careless decision could destroy the career I had spent most of my 20s building. Instead, I whispered, "Don't." That was when she kissed me. Her free hand rose to my face as if she had imagined the motion too many times to hesitate now. Her thumb rested beneath my ear. Her mouth was warm despite the cold that had begun creeping into the powerless hotel. For several seconds, the blackout, the snow, and every sensible thought in my head ceased to exist. Then she pulled away, only an inch, just enough for both of us to breathe. "Lee," she said. My name sounded unfamiliar in her mouth. Not because she had never used it before, but because she had never said it like it belonged to something precious. "We need to talk," I managed. "I know, this is a terrible idea. I know that too. And I came back for Sophia's portfolio, that's all." Vivienne glanced at the oversized folder resting beside the lounge door. It contained 6 months of my sister's architectural drawings and the scholarship application due at 9 the next morning. "You crossed half the city in a snowstorm for a folder," she said. She'll pretend it doesn't matter if she misses the deadline. But it does, more than she'll admit. A small expression moved across Vivienne's face, not quite a smile, not quite sadness. "You always come back for the things you love." Before I could answer, the emergency generator shifted somewhere below us. The lights flickered, briefly turning her face into a sequence of shadows. Then her hand slipped from my cheek. "One last kiss," she whispered. "Then I'll let you leave." I should have recognized the lie. Vivienne Cross did not lie during negotiations. She did not lie to investors, employees, reporters, or the wealthy guests who paid $20,000 a night to sleep beneath the Meridian's gold leaf ceilings. But she had already made me the same promise twice, once beside the darkened bar. Once at the elevator that still refused to move. Each time I had nodded. Each time she had pulled me back. The third kiss was slower than the first 2. There was no shock left to hide behind, no accident, no possibility of pretending we had misunderstood each other. Her hands settled carefully at my waist. Mine found the collar of her coat. It was black wool, perfectly tailored, and dusted with snow from the roof inspection she had insisted on conducting herself. She tasted faintly of orange peel tea. That detail almost broke me. For 4 years, orange peel tea had meant exhaustion, midnight events, Sophia waiting for me to come home, Vivienne appearing without explanation whenever I was closest to falling apart. I leaned back first. "Why tonight?" The question came out sharper than I intended. Vivienne lowered her hands. "Because the city went dark. That isn't an answer. No," she looked toward the black skyline. "It's an excuse. For what? For finally becoming the person I have spent 4 years pretending I'm not." The emergency lights flashed again. For a moment, she was the woman everyone in the city knew. 38 years old, elegant, untouchable, and heir to a hotel empire her mother had built from one bankrupt property. Then the red light moved on, and I saw what no magazine profile had ever captured. Fear. Not fear of the blackout, fear of me walking through the door. "I don't understand," I said. "I know. Then help me." Her eyes returned to mine. "I have rescheduled investor calls because Sophia had a school performance." I have ordered kitchen inspections on floors where I knew you were working because it gave me a reason to see you. I had the staff dining room keep orange peel tea in stock, even though you are the only person in this building who drinks it. My chest tightened. That was you. Of course it was me. The emergency family suite. Me. The car service during the transit strike. Also me. The extra security guard who walked me to the station every closing shift last winter. Her mouth trembled at one corner. I wasn't going to allow you to cross Roosevelt Avenue alone at 2 in the morning. You told me it was a new company policy. It became one the following week. You were the reason. I stared at her. The cold moved through the powerless lounge, but I barely felt it. How long? Vivienne's gaze dropped to the space between us. Long enough to know better. That isn't a number. 3 years and 7 months. The precision of the answer hurt more than it should have. She had counted. Vivienne remembered acquisition dates, occupancy percentages, and the birthdays of board members whose votes she occasionally needed. I had always believed I was simply another detail stored in the disciplined machinery of her mind. But 3 years and 7 months was not a corporate calculation. It was a confession. What happened 3 years and 7 months ago? I asked. She met my eyes again. You were sitting on the floor of the Juniper Ballroom with a broken shoe in one hand and your mother's final hospital bill in the other. The room seemed to tilt. I had almost forgotten that night, or maybe I had only convinced myself that she had. To explain why a woman like Vivienne Cross was standing in a dark hotel, asking for one final kiss she had no intention of making final, I have to take you back to the night she first found me. I was 24 years old when Cross House Hotels hired me as a junior event coordinator. The job title sounded more impressive than the work. I carried garment bags for brides who had packed the wrong dresses. I found emergency babysitters for diplomats. I learned which local florists would answer at 3 in the morning and which chefs could create a gluten-free wedding cake with 6 hours notice. I also learned that wealthy people became surprisingly honest when their expensive plans began falling apart. My own life had fallen apart 6 months earlier. My mother died after an illness that lasted 9 years and still somehow felt sudden. She left behind a stack of unpaid bills, a rent-controlled apartment, and my 13-year-old sister, Sophia. Our father had disappeared before Sophia learned to read. There was no aunt waiting to rescue us. No hidden inheritance. No miraculous insurance policy. There was only me. I left university, signed guardianship papers I barely understood, and accepted the first job that offered health coverage and enough night shifts to keep 2 people fed. Sophia never complained. That made it worse. At 13, she knew how to calculate the cost of a grocery cart before we reached the register. She stopped asking for school trips. She wore my old winter coat with the sleeves rolled twice and called it vintage. Every sacrifice arrived disguised as a joke, so I would not feel guilty. The night Vivienne found me in the Juniper Ballroom, I had been awake for 22 hours. A technology company had rented the space for an awards dinner. One of their executives knocked over a lighting stand. The keynote speaker lost her passport, and a guest decided at midnight that the floral centerpieces were the wrong shade of white. By the time the last truck left, the ballroom looked as though 500 people had celebrated the end of the world and expected me to clean it up. I sat behind the stage to repair the strap on my shoe with silver banquet tape. That was when the hospital bill slipped from my bag. I had been carrying it for 4 days, opening it whenever I felt brave and closing it whenever I reached the total. Final notice was printed across the top in red. Sophia needed braces. Our landlord wanted to raise the rent. I had $17 until payday. The mathematics of survival stopped working, so I cried, quietly at first, then with the exhausted helplessness of someone who had postponed grief until grief refused to wait any longer. You're going to cut your hand. Vivienne's voice came from the edge of the stage. I looked up so quickly that the banquet scissors slipped from my fingers. She stood beneath the last working chandelier in a charcoal suit, one hand resting in the pocket of her trousers. I had seen her in hallways, staff meetings, and the business pages of newspapers. Up close, she was even more intimidating. She looked like a person who had never been surprised by anything. "I'm sorry, Ms. Cross. I tried to stand. The broken shoe twisted beneath me." Vivienne crossed the ballroom before I fell. One hand caught my arm. The other settled briefly at my waist. It was the first time she touched me. At the time, it meant nothing. Later, it would become the first entry in a history neither of us admitted we were keeping. "Sit," she said. "I'm almost finished. You have one shoe and you're bleeding." I looked down. The scissors had opened a thin line across my palm. "It's nothing." People usually say that when something is very clearly not nothing. Her gaze moved to the paper beside me. I tried to cover it, but she had already seen the hospital letter. Something in her expression changed. Not pity. Vivienne Cross did not seem capable of anything as simple as pity. Recognition, perhaps. She removed the silk scarf from around her neck, folded it, and pressed it into my hand. "Hold that against the cut. This looks expensive." "It is. I'll ruin it. It's a scarf, Ms. Ortiz. It will recover." I almost laughed. The sound came out broken. Vivienne sat on the edge of the stage beside me. Not near me. Beside me. Her coat probably cost more than every piece of furniture in our apartment, yet she lowered herself onto a dusty ballroom floor without hesitation. For a while, she said nothing. The silence did not feel empty. It felt guarded, like she was standing between me and something I could not face alone. Finally, she asked, "Who is Sophia?" I went still. Vivienne pointed toward my phone. The screen had lit with a message. "Sophia, don't worry. Mrs. Alvarez said I can sleep here. Finish work. Love you." "My sister," I said. "I'm her guardian. You're 24. I know, that wasn't criticism." It sounded like surprise. It was. The hardness left her voice. "Is she safe tonight?" "Yes." "Our neighbor has her. And you?" The question irritated me. I was not accustomed to being included in the category of people who required protection. "I'm working. That is not the same as being safe." Before I could respond, Vivienne stood and disappeared through the ballroom doors. I assumed I had embarrassed her, or bored her, or crossed some invisible line between employee difficulty and executive inconvenience. 10 minutes later, she returned carrying a hotel sewing kit, a first aid box, and a cup of tea. She knelt in front of me. The CEO of Cross House Hotels repaired the strap of my discount store shoe beneath a chandelier her company had insured for $12 million. "You know how to sew?" I asked. My mother believed helplessness was a character flaw. That sounds healthy. It was not. That was the first time I saw her smile. It lasted less than a second, but it transformed her face so completely that I forgot to breathe. She secured the strap, placed the shoe beside my foot, and handed me the tea. Steam carried the scent of orange peel and cinnamon. "I asked the kitchen for chamomile," she said. "They had this. It's perfect. You haven't tasted it. I don't need to." Her eyes rested on me for a moment longer than professional interest required. Then she noticed the hospital bill again. "There is an employee hardship fund." I checked. "I haven't worked here long enough. You have now. I don't want special treatment." "Neither do I." Her answer was so immediate that I looked at her. Vivienne closed the first aid box with precise fingers. "I want the policy corrected. A person's emergency does not become less urgent because they have only worked here for 4 months." The next morning, Human Resources announced that the eligibility period for the hardship fund had been removed. Every employee received the email. No one knew why. 2 days later, the hospital bill was paid through a confidential grant. I told myself Vivienne had not done it for me. She had corrected an unfair policy because she was a responsible executive. That explanation allowed me to sleep. It also became the first of many explanations I would construct over the next 4 years. There was the family suite. 6 months after the ballroom, a frozen pipe flooded our apartment. Sophia and I spent one night on Mrs. Alvarez's floor before I admitted the problem to my manager. By sunset, Vivienne had converted an unused staff room on the Meridian's 8th floor into an emergency family suite. She claimed it had been planned for months. The new paint was still wet when Sophia and I arrived. There were 2 beds, a small refrigerator, clean school supplies, and a sketchbook waiting on the desk. Sophia loved to draw buildings. I had mentioned that once during a staff meeting when someone asked why she spent so many evenings in the hotel lobby waiting for my shift to end. The sketchbook had heavy cream pages and a dark green cover. No note, no signature. I did not ask who bought it. I was beginning to understand that asking would force both Vivienne and me to acknowledge something neither of us was ready to name. After that, the accommodations became smaller. My Tuesday shifts mysteriously ended early enough for Sophia's parent-teacher meetings. When the subway workers went on strike, a company car began collecting every employee assigned to late events. I later learned Vivienne had approved the cost after seeing me asleep at my desk with a transit map open beneath my hand. The staff dining room started serving vegetarian soup on the nights I worked closing shifts. My favorite brand of orange tea appeared in the executive pantry. Whenever I thanked Vivienne for any of it, she gave me the same answer. It was necessary. Necessary became our private language. The gloves left on my desk after mine split at the seam were necessary. The promotion that moved me from junior coordinator to executive events liaison was necessary. The security escort who walked me to the station was necessary. Vivienne passing the ballroom 3 times during every major event was apparently necessary too, even when her office was 40 floors above it. Celia Park, the hotel's director of guest experience and the closest thing I had to a friend at work, noticed before I did. "She likes you," Celia said one evening as we watched Vivienne cross the lobby for the second time in 20 minutes. "She's checking the event. She has a tablet that shows her every detail of the event. She believes in being present. She believes in being present wherever you are." I pretended to study the seating plan. Celia leaned closer. "She has 6 hotels, 1,400 employees, and a board trying to sell her company in pieces. Yet somehow she has time to personally confirm that Lee Ortiz ate dinner. She does that for everyone. No, she respects everyone. She terrifies most people. She does that for you." I did not let myself believe Celia. Believing her would have been reckless. Vivienne was 11 years older than me. She was wealthy enough to treat financial disasters like administrative errors. She had been educated in Switzerland and photographed in Paris, and raised in rooms where people used marriage as a business strategy. I shared a 2-bedroom apartment with my teenage sister and still checked my bank balance before ordering coffee. More importantly, she was my boss. Not my direct manager by then, but high enough above me that the difference barely mattered. So I turned each moment into a coincidence. Until the night of the blackout, when coincidence placed its hands around my waist and kissed me beneath a red emergency light. Standing in the powerless executive lounge, I looked at Vivienne and understood that we had spent years building matching lies. "You remember the hospital bill," I said. "I remember everything about that night. I was a disaster. You were exhausted. I was crying on the floor with tape around my shoe. You answered 3 calls while you were crying. You found a diabetic guest's medication. You called your sister twice to make sure she had eaten. And when I offered you help, your first concern was whether you would ruin my scarf." Her voice softened. "I went upstairs that night and looked at an acquisition report for 2 hours without understanding a word of it. All I could think about was you apologizing for bleeding on something I could replace." "Vivienne!" I knew then. The red light flashed across her face. I didn't know what to call it. But I knew I wanted to make your life easier, and that wanting frightened me more than any hostile board meeting ever has. "Why?" "Because I am very good at solving problems." Her eyes held mine. "And you were never a problem. You were a person I wanted. I had no procedure for that." Despite everything, I laughed. Vivienne's mouth curved. The expression was brief, but there was nothing guarded about it now. "What changed tonight?" I asked. "The blackout gave me several minutes in which no one could reach me. That's all it took." "No," she drew in a slow breath. "My father scheduled the Wren announcement." The warmth left the room. "What announcement?" Vivienne went still. The silence between us changed shape. Until that second, it had contained desire, risk, and years of unanswered questions. Now it contained a name I had seen illuminate her phone more than once. Adrian Wren. Wren Capital had financed 3 Cross House properties. Their family name appeared on museums, hospitals, and one entire wing of the city university. I knew Adrian and Vivienne attended charity events together. I knew society columns enjoyed placing them in the same photographs. I did not know there was an announcement. "Tell me," I said. Vivienne turned toward the window. My father and Adrian's grandfather agreed to a marriage when Adrian and I were in our 20s. I stared at her back. A marriage? It was never formal. That isn't the same as never real. No. Are you engaged to him? Not in any way that matters to me. The answer cut deeper than a simple yes. What does that mean? It means there is no ring on my hand. There has been no proposal. Adrian and I have never been in love. But Vivienne faced me again. But our families built a financial agreement around the expectation that we eventually would be. The hotel seemed colder. The board wants to announce it next Friday, she continued. My father believes the appearance of a permanent alliance will protect Cross House from a hostile acquisition. And what do you believe? I believe my father has spent my entire life mistaking obligation for love. That still isn't an answer. Her face tightened. I told him no. Relief came too quickly. I distrusted it immediately. And he accepted that. My father has never accepted a boundary he could still see. A phone began vibrating on the dark bar. Vivienne's phone. The screen displayed Adrian Wren's name. Neither of us moved. It stopped, then began again. "Answer it," I said. "I don't want to. You probably need to. I have spent 4 years doing what I need to do." Her eyes returned to my mouth. "For 5 more minutes, I would like to do something else." I should have stepped away. Instead, I moved closer. Vivienne's hand found mine again. "Lee, I will end it." "How?" "I have lawyers working on alternative financing. Adrian knows I won't marry him. But the board doesn't. They will. When? Before next Friday." The certainty in her voice was familiar. It was the voice that had reopened hotels after hurricanes and persuaded banks to renegotiate impossible loans. I wanted to trust it. I wanted to believe that wanting something was enough for Vivienne Cross to make it real. "You're asking me to risk my job," I said. "I know. My reputation. I know. And Sophia's stability." At my sister's name, her fingers loosened. "I would never ask you to risk Sophia. You don't get one without the other. She is my life." Vivienne nodded. "That is one of the things I love about you." The word entered the room so quietly that I almost missed it. Love. Not wanted. Not remembered. Loved. Vivienne closed her eyes for half a second as if she had surprised herself. When she opened them again, she did not take the word back. "I love you," she said. "I have loved you badly, silently, and from a distance that stopped feeling honorable a long time ago." My throat tightened. "You can't say that and expect me to think clearly." "I don't expect anything from you. You kissed me, after I asked, and then you did it 2 more times. You kept saying yes. That isn't the point." "No," her voice softened. "The point is that I should have told you everything before the first time." For once, the most controlled woman I knew looked entirely uncertain. "If you leave now, I won't follow you. I won't punish you. Your position will remain protected, and tomorrow I will begin arranging for you to report outside my authority." "You've thought about that?" "I have drafted the restructuring 6 times. 6. The first 5 made it look as though I was promoting you because I loved you. And the 6th makes it clear I love you because you deserved every promotion before I admitted it." I tried not to smile. I failed. Vivienne saw. Hope moved across her face so openly that it frightened me. "One last kiss," she said. "Then I'll let you leave." "You said that already. I was hoping you had forgotten. I remember almost everything you say. I know the feeling." This time I kissed her first. The generator failed completely while her arms were around me. The red lights vanished. Darkness covered the lounge. Vivienne pulled me closer, not with force, but with the instinctive urgency of someone making sure I was still there. For a few seconds, there was nothing except her breath, the warmth of her hands, and snow whispering against glass. Then the backup system returned. The lights came on. The phone had stopped ringing. Beside it on the bar lay a black envelope I had not noticed before. Heavy paper. Silver lettering. Cross House Hotels and Wren Capital request the honor. Vivienne reached it before I could read the rest. She turned it face down. The board had mock-ups prepared, she said. My happiness folded in on itself. How long have you known? 3 days, and you didn't tell me. I didn't know there was a you to tell. There has been a me for 4 years. The words struck both of us. Vivienne released the envelope. You're right. I need to go. Lee, I am not punishing you. I need to think somewhere you are not looking at me like that. Like what? Like I'm already the answer. Her eyes lowered. Aren't you? I don't know yet. Pain flickered across her face, but she nodded. Then I'll give you time. I picked up Sophia's portfolio. Vivienne walked beside me to the stairwell. With the elevators down, leaving meant 47 flights through a concrete emergency shaft. We descended together. At the 40th floor, she carried the portfolio. At the 32nd, she gave me her gloves. At the 24th, I caught her watching me. At the 18th, I asked, "Are you actually going to let me leave this time?" "No," she said. I stopped on the landing. Vivienne's eyes widened. Then, for the first time that night, she laughed. The sound echoed through the stairwell, bright and unprotected. "I mean, yes. Obviously, I only meant that I don't want to." That is a dangerous distinction. It's the only honest one I have. At the lobby doors, she handed me the portfolio. The snow had covered the street in white. A company car waited at the curb, engine running. "I arranged it before the network failed," she said. "The driver will take you home. Necessary, completely." I stepped outside. The cold struck my face. "Lee," I turned. Vivienne stood beneath the hotel canopy, one hand braced against the brass door. She looked smaller outside the architecture of her authority. I meant what I said. Which part? All of it. I looked at the woman I had spent 4 years trying not to love. "End the announcement," I said. "Then ask me what comes next." She nodded. "I will." The following morning, Sophia submitted her portfolio 7 minutes before the deadline. She did not notice that I had slept for less than an hour. She did notice Vivienne's gloves. "Those are not yours," she said over breakfast. "They were borrowed. From someone with taste. Eat your toast." Sophia narrowed her eyes. At 17, she possessed the investigative instincts of a prosecutor and the emotional subtlety of a car alarm. Did something happen at the hotel? There was a blackout. That was on the news. Then why did you ask? I wasn't asking about the electricity. I carried my coffee to the sink. Sophia followed. "Is this about your terrifying boss?" "She isn't terrifying. You once described her as a beautifully dressed natural disaster. That was after a difficult event. You also have a photograph of her saved on your phone." It was a press article. You cropped out the article. I turned. Sophia grinned. For the first time in years, she looked exactly like the child she should have been allowed to remain. "Your portfolio is due," I said. "Already uploaded. Then you'll be late for school." "Classes are delayed because of the snow." "Of course they are." She pulled one of Vivienne's gloves from the counter. "Are you going to tell me?" "When there is something to tell." Sophia examined the glove. "There is definitely something to tell." My phone rang. "Vivienne." Sophia placed the glove carefully into my hand and left the kitchen without another joke. I answered. "Good morning." Vivienne exhaled. "You answered. You called." "I wasn't certain you would." "What happened with your father?" I told him the announcement will not proceed. And he reminded me that Wren Capital controls our revolving credit. "English, please." If they withdraw it immediately, 3 properties will miss payroll within 6 weeks. The fear I had kept at a distance moved closer. Can they do that? They can choose not to renew. The agreement expires at the end of the quarter. Did Adrian threaten you? No, my father did. Your father doesn't control Wren Capital. He controls information. He has spent months telling their board that Adrian and I were privately committed. Were you? No. Her answer was immediate. "Lee, there is something else. I sent the reporting restructure to Human Resources this morning. Effective immediately, you will report to Celia. Compensation and title unchanged." You didn't have to do that before we decided anything. Yes, I did. Why? Because whether you choose me or not, I kissed an employee whose career I could influence. I will not leave that imbalance in place. Some of the tension in my chest released. What will people think? People already think whatever entertains them most. And the board? The board has thought I was difficult since I turned 21. A pause. I have a meeting with Adrian at noon. I will tell you everything afterward. You don't owe me every detail. I know, her voice dropped. I want to give them to you anyway. At 12:43, Vivienne texted. He understands. His family will not, working on it. At 2:15, I miss you. I recognize it has been less than 12 hours. Apparently, dignity has abandoned me. I read that message 3 times before answering. Maybe dignity was overrated. The typing indicator appeared immediately. Come upstairs. I looked toward Celia's office. She was watching me through the glass. When our eyes met, she pointed toward the ceiling. Go, she mouthed. Vivienne was standing behind her desk when I entered the executive office. Daylight changed everything. Her hair was pinned neatly back. Her suit was dark navy. Acquisition reports covered the conference table. She looked like my boss again. Then she crossed the room and stopped 2 feet in front of me. May I kiss you? The question rearranged the air. Yes. She did not pull me toward her. She waited until I crossed the remaining distance. The kiss was brief and careful, more promise than surrender. When we separated, Vivienne touched her forehead to mine. I told Adrian. About last night. About 4 years. My heart stumbled. What did he say? That it explained a great deal. That sounds ominous. It was humiliatingly perceptive. She led me to the couch by the windows. The city had regained power, but snow still softened the roofs below. Adrian does not want the marriage, she said. He never has. His family trust, however, gives his grandfather control over several major financial decisions until Adrian turns 40. When is that? In 14 months. So we wait 14 months? No, the answer carried enough force to make me look at her. I have already spent 4 years waiting. I won't ask you for 14 more months. What will you do? Find replacement financing. Sell my apartment if necessary. Your apartment is not worth 3 hotels. It is an offensively expensive apartment. Still, the corner of her mouth lifted. Adrian has offered to help, quietly. He believes we can convince 2 members of the Ren board to support a 6-month extension without the announcement. And if you then I sell 1 property before my father can force the sale of all of them. The answer was harsh, practical, and real. For the first time, I understood that Vivienne was not choosing between a loveless engagement and happiness. She was choosing between me and hundreds of people who had trusted her to protect their livelihoods. I don't want employees losing jobs because of me. They won't. You can't promise that. No, her gaze lowered to our hands. But I can promise not to use them as an excuse to surrender before I have tried every alternative. That was the beginning of us, not the kiss in the blackout. Not the confession beneath the emergency lights. The beginning was Vivienne admitting she could not control the outcome and choosing to fight anyway. For the next 5 weeks, we built a relationship in the spaces our lives allowed. There were no extravagant dinners. Vivienne offered once. I reminded her that appearing in a restaurant where appetizers cost more than my monthly subway pass would attract attention. After that, we met before sunrise in the closed rooftop cafe. The kitchen staff arrived at 6. We arrived at 5:15. Vivienne made terrible coffee. I drank it anyway. She learned that Sophia hated mushrooms, loved Art Deco buildings, and had applied to 6 architecture programs without telling me because she was afraid application fees would strain our budget. I learned that Vivienne slept with the television on because silence reminded her of the year she spent alone in her mother's house after the funeral. She disliked lilies, loved cheap mystery novels, and carried a brass room key from the original Meridian Hotel in her coat pocket. The key belonged to room 814. Her mother had lived there during the hotel's first renovation. When I was a child, I believed every room had a secret door, Vivienne told me one morning. My mother said hotels survive by allowing people to believe escape is always possible. Was she right? About hotels, perhaps, and people. Vivienne looked at me across the small cafe table. I think people survive by finding somewhere they want to stay. We were careful at work. In public, she called me Ms. Ortiz. I called her Ms. Cross. We attended meetings from opposite sides of the table. In private, she left notes beneath my coffee cup. Eat lunch. Sophia's interview is at 4. You look beautiful in green. That final note stayed folded in my wallet. Adrian arrived at the Meridian during the 3rd week. He was tall, blonde, and far less threatening than an heir to a financial empire had any right to be. Celia brought him to the executive floor while Vivienne was still in a board meeting. When he saw me, recognition crossed his face. "You're Lee." It was not a question. "I am." He offered his hand. "Adrian Wren, I know, I imagine you do." There was no hostility in his expression, only tired amusement. "I should apologize," he said. "For what?" "For participating in a fiction long enough that it became dangerous to someone else. You didn't create it." "No, but comfort can turn into consent if you remain silent for long enough." The insight sounded earned. "You really don't want to marry her?" Adrian smiled. Vivienne once reorganized an entire charity dinner so she would not be seated beside me. That could have been about the guest list. She placed me beside an 86-year-old shipping magnate who spent 3 hours explaining maritime tax law. I tried not to laugh. "Vivienne is rarely accidental," he continued, "especially where you are concerned. What is that supposed to mean? She mentions you constantly. She mentions my work. She once described the precise expression you make when hotel guests request live animals after midnight. That happens more often than you'd think. She also knows your sister's examination schedule." I looked toward the closed boardroom doors. Adrian's expression softened. "I have known Vivienne for 15 years. She is loyal to the point of self-destruction." That makes people assume she can be controlled through responsibility. Can she? For a while. He glanced at the brass key visible beside my phone. Vivienne had given it to me that morning. "She gave you room 814. It's a key to a room that no longer exists. That is what it means." Before I could ask, the boardroom doors opened. Vivienne emerged with her father. Malcolm Cross was 63, silver-haired, and handsome in the carefully maintained way of men who believe aging is something that happens to employees. His gaze moved from Adrian to me, then to the brass key. Recognition hardened his face. "Ms. Ortiz," he said. "Mr. Cross. I've heard a great deal about your work." There was nothing complimentary in his tone. Vivienne stepped between us with such subtle precision that another person might not have noticed. I did. "Lee was responsible for the Madison acquisition event," she said. "It closed 3 weeks ahead of schedule." "Yes," Malcolm replied. "My daughter has always been unusually enthusiastic about your contributions." Adrian's jaw tightened. Vivienne did not move. "Is there something you need, Father?" "A private conversation." "Then schedule one." "I remember when you used to understand that family came before calendars." "I remember when you used to understand that this was my office." For one silent second, no one breathed. Malcolm smiled. The expression contained no warmth. "Next Friday," he said to Vivienne, "the board will vote. Sentiment will not refinance your hotels." He walked toward the elevators. At the doors, he looked back at me. "Be careful, Ms. Ortiz. My daughter has always confused rescuing people with loving them." The elevator closed before I could answer. Vivienne's face had gone pale. Adrian swore beneath his breath. "He knows," I said. "Yes. How?" "My father knows everything that might become useful." Vivienne reached for my hand, then stopped herself because 2 assistants were watching from the reception desk. The unfinished movement hurt more than the insult. "Come into my office," she said. Once the door closed, I turned on her. "Is that what this is?" "No, you paid my hospital bill. The employee fund paid it. Because you changed the rules. The rules were cruel. You gave Sophia and me a room. I created a program that has served 32 families since then. You changed my schedule. You promoted me. You kept finding ways to solve my life. Because I loved you. Or because you needed to rescue someone." Vivienne flinched. I wished immediately that I could take the words back. but fear had already found its sharpest weapon. She walked to the window. My mother collected broken hotels, she said, buildings everyone else had abandoned. She believed love meant seeing value other people had missed. That doesn't answer me. No, Vivienne turned. You want to know whether I confuse rescue with love? Perhaps I do. No one taught me a version of love that did not involve preventing catastrophe. Her voice remained steady, but her eyes did not. But I did not promote you because I loved you. I fell in love with you partly because I watched you earn every promotion while carrying responsibilities that would have crushed people with twice your support. She removed the brass key from her pocket and placed it in my palm. Room 814 was the only place my mother allowed herself to be uncertain. She gave me that key the week before she died and told me not to inherit the version of her that never went home. Vivienne folded my fingers around it. I gave it to you because you are the first person who has ever made home feel like a possibility. Every defense I had raised collapsed at once. I'm scared, I admitted. So am I. I can't let Sophia build another life around someone who might disappear. I know, and I can't become a secret you visit before sunrise. You won't. Then what happens next Friday? Vivienne's face sharpened with decision. I tell the board the Wren announcement is canceled. I present the alternative financing package. And after the meeting, if you still want me, I ask you to have dinner somewhere with terrible coffee and no photographers. I touched the key in my palm. And if the board rejects the package, then I lose a hotel. You say that as if it doesn't hurt. It will. Her eyes held mine. Losing you would hurt more. I kissed her in the middle of her office. It was reckless. The walls were glass. Her assistants were 20 feet away. Her father was probably still inside the building. For once, Vivienne was the cautious one. She drew back first. Someone could see. I thought you were tired of hiding. I am, but I would prefer to stop hiding deliberately with legal counsel present. I laughed against her mouth. She smiled. The board vote was 7 days away when Vivienne met Sophia. It happened at Sophia's scholarship exhibition in the public library. Vivienne was supposed to attend a dinner with investors. She canceled without telling me and appeared at the exhibition carrying no flowers, no expensive gift, and nothing that could turn the evening into a display of wealth. She simply came. Sophia's project was a model for converting abandoned hotels into transitional housing for families. The roof lifted away to reveal childcare rooms, shared kitchens, and small private apartments. Vivienne studied it for 10 full minutes. Most adults praised Sophia's work and moved on. Vivienne asked about plumbing access, zoning restrictions, and how residents would maintain privacy in the communal areas. Sophia answered every question. When Vivienne finally stepped away, my sister stared at me. She's the terrifying boss. Please don't call her that. I like her. You've spoken to her for 12 minutes. She took my building seriously. Vivienne approached with 3 paper cups of vending machine coffee. She handed one to me. I tasted it. This is terrible. I was promised authenticity. Sophia looked between us. You two are being weird. Vivienne nearly dropped her coffee. I coughed. Sophia folded her arms. I'm 17, not 7. Sophia. Is this why Lee has been smiling at her phone? Vivienne looked at me. You smile at my messages. That is not the important part of this conversation. It is important to me. Sophia groaned. You're both hopeless. Vivienne's expression turned serious. You have every right to ask questions. I only have one. Sophia looked directly at her. Are you going to hurt her? The library noise seemed to fade. Vivienne did not offer a quick promise. That was one of the reasons I loved her. I will make mistakes, she said. I have spent most of my life believing that if I planned carefully enough, I could prevent them. Your sister is teaching me that honesty matters more than appearing in control. That isn't an answer either. No, Vivienne nodded. The answer is that I will do everything I can not to hurt her, and if I do, I will not hide behind my position, my family, or good intentions. Sophia considered her. Okay. You can stay for the awards. Relief softened Vivienne's face. Thank you. Also, Lee likes cheap diner pancakes more than expensive restaurants. I know. And she needs someone to remind her to sleep. I know that too. Stop discussing me as if I'm not here. Neither of them listened. Sophia won the scholarship. Afterward, we ate pancakes at a diner across from the library. Vivienne removed her coat, rolled up her sleeves, and listened while Sophia explained every building she intended to redesign. At midnight, Sophia fell asleep against the window of our booth. Vivienne looked at her, then at me. The longing in her eyes was almost unbearable. I want this, she said quietly. A diner. You know what I mean. I did. Ordinary evenings, bad coffee, someone waiting at home, a life that existed after the last meeting ended. You haven't won the board vote yet, I reminded her. No, your father is still fighting you. Yes, and Adrian's family could withdraw the credit. All true. I reached across the table. Then why do you look happy? Vivienne turned her hand beneath mine and linked our fingers. Because none of those things change what I want. She drove us home. Sophia woke long enough to hug her outside our building. The gesture stunned Vivienne into stillness. Then she held my sister carefully, one hand resting at the back of her head. Good night, Sophia murmured. Good night. After Sophia went upstairs, Vivienne remained beside the car. Snow had begun again, softer than the storm that knocked out the city. I love you, she said. No metaphor, no careful explanation, just the words. I love you too. Vivienne closed her eyes. The breath that left her sounded as though she had been holding it for 4 years. When she kissed me, there was nothing desperate about it. It felt steady, chosen, real. That should have been the moment the story became simple. The powerful woman rejects the life designed for her. The struggling employee discovers that she was loved all along. The board accepts the alternative financing. The hotel survives. Everyone goes home. But real choices do not become easier simply because they are correct. 3 days before the board vote, a photograph appeared online. It showed Vivienne and me outside the library. Sophia had already entered the building. Vivienne's hands were framing my face, and I was smiling up at her with the unguarded happiness of someone who did not know she was being watched. The headline read, Cross House CEO's Secret Romance with Employee Threatens Ren Alliance. By 7 in the morning, the photograph had been reproduced by 6 news sites. By 8, reporters were outside the Meridian. By 9, Human Resources had received an anonymous complaint alleging that every promotion I had earned was the result of my relationship with Vivienne. At 9:15, Celia closed my office door. You're being placed on paid administrative leave, she said. The words struck with physical force. I didn't do anything. I know. Then why am I being sent home? Because legal believes remaining in the building exposes you to more accusations. My team has 2 events this week. I'll handle them. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Celia's professional expression cracked. I know. Where is Vivienne? Boardroom. Does she agree with this? No. That was somehow worse. Celia moved closer. Lee, someone accessed archived security logs to identify when the 2 of you began arriving at the same time. This isn't gossip anymore. Someone is building a case. A case for what? Removing Vivienne. The office seemed to recede around me. Her father. We can't prove it. We don't have to. The door opened. Vivienne entered with Malcolm and 2 attorneys behind her. Her gaze found mine immediately. I'm not allowing them to suspend you, she said. Malcolm gave a quiet sigh. This is not the time for declarations. It is exactly the time. He glanced at me. Ms. Ortiz's continued presence creates a legal and reputational risk. My relationship with Lee began after her reporting line changed. The public will find that distinction charming. Vivienne stepped closer to him. Leave her out of this. You brought her into it. No, you did when you leaked a photograph involving a 17-year-old child. My stomach dropped. Malcolm's expression did not change. Sophia had not appeared in the published image, but the original photograph must have included her. You can't prove that, he said. I won't need to if you never use the rest of the photographs. For the first time, Malcolm looked uncertain. Vivienne turned to me. You should go home. The instruction hurt even though her eyes were asking me to trust her. Are you coming? As soon as I can. When? I don't know. Malcolm adjusted his cuff. The Wren board has called an emergency meeting in London tomorrow morning. Vivienne's jaw tightened. I understood before she spoke. You're going, I said. I have to present the financing package in person. To Adrian's family. Yes, the same family expecting an engagement announcement. I am going to end that expectation. You said the board vote was Friday. The photograph accelerated everything. Malcolm smiled without warmth. Reality has a way of doing that. Vivienne turned on him. If Sophia's image appears anywhere, I will make public every email you sent to the Wren board without my authorization. You would destroy the company. No, I would destroy your remaining influence over it. The room fell silent. I had seen Vivienne angry before. This was different. This was a woman setting fire to the bridge behind her so no one could force her back across it. Malcolm left without another word. The attorneys followed. When the door closed, Vivienne reached for me. I stepped into her arms before pride could stop me. I'm sorry, she whispered. This isn't your fault. Some of it is. Then fix your part. I will. She held my face. I fly out at 6. Adrian and I meet the Wren board tomorrow morning. We present the extension and the independent financing package. If they reject both, I authorize the sale of the Boston property. That hotel was your mother's first. I know. The grief in her voice was quiet and bottomless. You don't have to do this for me. I am not doing it only for you. Her thumbs brushed my cheeks. I am doing it because every time I accepted my father's version of duty, I taught him that coercion worked. I am finished teaching him. Call me when you land. I will. Tell me the truth even if it's bad. I promise. No managing me. No deciding what I can handle. No managing. No noble silence. Vivienne's eyes closed briefly. No silence. She kissed me in the middle of the executive floor. Employees watched through glass walls. Celia stood in the doorway. 2 lawyers waited beside the elevators. Vivienne did not care. I love you, she said against my forehead. Whatever appears online, whatever my father says, whatever photograph they publish, believe this. I love you too. She kissed me once more. Then she left for the airport. The first day went almost exactly as promised. Vivienne called before boarding. She texted after landing. London gray and raining. You would hate the coffee. I answered, you make worse coffee. Her reply came immediately. Cruel but fair. At noon, she sent a photograph of the brass key to room 814 resting beside her passport. I have home with me. That evening, she called from her hotel. Her voice was tired but hopeful. Adrian convinced 2 directors to consider the extension. That's good. It's not enough yet, but it's movement. Yes, a pause. How is Sophia? Pretending reporters outside the building are interesting. I am so sorry. She knows it isn't your fault. Do you? Mostly. Vivienne laughed softly. I'll earn the remaining percentage. You don't have to earn love. No, but trust is different. I lay in bed with the phone against my ear. When will you know? Tomorrow afternoon. And then, I come home. The next morning, her messages became shorter, entering the meeting. Then, Wren board rejected the first proposal. Adrian is pushing for another vote. 3 hours later, my father arrived. I stared at those 4 words until they blurred. What is he doing there? No answer. At 6 in the evening, everything has changed. I need time. I called. The call went directly to voicemail. I texted, time for what? Vivienne talked to me. Nothing, at midnight. Please trust that I am trying to protect the right things. Anger moved beneath my fear. We agreed. No managing. Tell me what happened. The message showed as delivered, not read. The following day, there was no contact at all. I remained on administrative leave. Reporters waited outside the hotel and our apartment building. Sophia stopped pretending it was funny. At 3 in the afternoon, Celia called. Don't search Vivienne's name, she said. My body went cold. What happened? Lee, listen to me. I ended the call and opened the news app. The headline was already trending. Cross-Wren engagement officially announced in London. The photograph beneath it showed Vivienne and Adrian standing on the steps of Wren House. Adrian wore a dark suit. Vivienne wore silver. A diamond rested on her left hand. Her father stood behind them, smiling. I read the article once. Then again. The words refused to make sense. The announcement described a spring wedding and a permanent financial alliance between Cross House Hotels and Ren Capital. It quoted Vivienne. Family and legacy have always guided my decisions. My phone slipped from my hand. Sophia found me sitting on the kitchen floor. She did not ask whether I was all right. She saw the photograph on the screen. For a second, she looked 17. Then she looked much younger. She promised, Sophia said. I know. Maybe the article is wrong. There's a ring. Pictures can be staged. There's a quote. Quotes can be fake. Sophia. My voice broke on her name. She sat beside me and rested her head against my shoulder. I had spent 4 years protecting her from hospital rooms, overdue notices, landlords, and every adult who had disappointed us. Now she was trying to protect me from a photograph. I'm sorry, I whispered. You didn't do anything. I brought her into our life. I liked her. That makes it worse. No, Sophia took my hand. It means she has to explain. Vivienne called at 5:40 in the morning. I watched the phone ring until the screen nearly went dark. Then I answered. Lee. Her voice was thin and breathless. I heard airport announcements behind her. Congratulations, I said. Don't. What am I supposed to say? The announcement isn't real. The diamond looked real. It belongs to the Wren family. That is not helping. I know. Your quote said family and legacy guided your decision. I never gave them that quote. But you stood there. A ragged silence. Yes, the single word hurt more than an excuse would have. Why? My father arrived with documents showing that he had triggered a default clause in the Cross House credit agreement. I don't understand. He transferred one of our properties into a holding company without board approval. The transfer technically violated our loan terms. Wren Capital could have demanded immediate repayment. And Adrian? Adrian tried to stop them. His grandfather gave us 24 hours to announce an engagement, to stabilize the company while Adrian transferred control of his voting shares into an independent trust. The engagement bought us the time required to complete the transfer. You agreed. Yes. You put on their ring. Yes. You stood beside him while they announced a wedding. Each answer arrived quieter than the last. Yes, I closed my eyes. You promised there would be no silence. I know. You promised you wouldn't decide what I could handle. I know. You promised to tell me the truth even if it was bad. I failed. The directness of her answer stopped me. There was no defense in her voice, no polished explanation, only exhaustion and shame. My father had my phone taken from the meeting room, she continued. But that does not excuse the hours after. I could have borrowed Adrian's phone. I could have called from the hotel. Instead, I convinced myself that explaining before the transfer was complete would only frighten you. It did frighten me. I know. No, Vivienne, the truth would have frightened me. Silence destroyed me. Her breathing broke. I was wrong. Behind her, an announcement called passengers for a flight to New York. I have signed documents dissolving the marriage agreement, she said. Adrian's voting trust is complete. Wren Capital has approved a 6-month extension without personal conditions. The public announcement will be withdrawn this afternoon. And the ring. I left it on my father's seat in the boardroom. I wanted that image to repair something. It did not yet. What happens to the hotels? We sell Boston. The proceeds protect the others and cover the refinancing. Your mother's first hotel. Yes. Grief moved through her voice. I chose it, Lee. Not happily, not without cost, but I chose it. You should have chosen honesty before I had to see you engaged to someone else on my phone. Yes. No argument, no justification, just yes. I love you, Vivienne said, but I used love as permission to make decisions for you. That was not protection. It was control wearing a kinder face. Tears burned behind my eyes. You don't get to say the perfect thing and make this disappear. I know. You always know after. The silence that followed was filled with airport noise and 6,000 kilometers of distance. I am boarding now, she said. I don't know if I want you to come here. I have to come home whether you want to see me or not. Vivienne, I don't mean to your apartment. Her voice cracked. I mean home to the consequences of what I did. I pressed my hand over my mouth. Give me until midnight, she said. My flight lands at 10:40. I will come to your building only if you tell me I may. And then what? Then I tell you everything without lawyers, boards, or explanations designed to soften it. You decide what happens after that. What if I decide we're over? I will accept it. Her answer was quiet. But I will not let the last true thing between us be a photograph my father arranged. I looked toward the kitchen table. Vivienne's gloves were still there from the night of the blackout. Sophia had folded them neatly beside my bag. Midnight, I said. Vivienne released a shaking breath. Thank you. That isn't forgiveness. I understand. Message me when you land. I will. And Vivienne? Yes. If you disappear again, don't come to my door. I won't disappear. I nearly laughed at the promise. Perhaps she heard it. I know I have no right to ask you to believe me, she said. So I won't. I'll come back and prove I returned. The call ended. For the rest of the day, time moved in numbers. 11 hours until midnight. 9 hours and 12 minutes. 7 hours. Sophia went to school because she said sitting beside me would only make both of us watch the clock. Celia called to tell me the engagement announcement had been withdrawn. At 3, Adrian released a statement confirming there would be no marriage. At 4, Wren Capital announced the 6-month credit extension. At 5, the Cross House Board opened an investigation into Malcolm's unauthorized property transfer. At 6, Vivienne's flight appeared on the arrivals board, delayed 40 minutes, then 1 hour. Then 90 minutes. At 9:30, snow began falling again. At 10:17, Vivienne messaged, landed, still on the plane. At 10:49, customs line, I am coming. At 11:20, traffic stopped on Madison. Leaving the car and taking the subway, I stared at the message. Vivienne Cross had probably not used the subway in 15 years. At 11:36, train delayed between stations. At 11:42, moving again. At 11:48, the typing indicator appeared, then vanished. No message arrived. 11:50. 11:52. Sophia stood in the hallway wearing her pajamas. Are you going to let her in? I don't know. You love her. That doesn't answer everything. No, Sophia said, but it answers one thing. The clock changed. 11:53 p.m. Someone knocked, 3 careful taps. Sophia looked at me. My heart struck hard against my ribs. On the kitchen table, Vivienne's gloves rested beside the brass key to room 814. A key to a room that no longer existed. A key her mother had given her so she would remember to go home. The knock came again. I crossed the apartment slowly. 7 minutes remained until midnight. I placed my hand on the lock and wondered which version of Vivienne Cross was waiting on the other side. The CEO who solved every problem by deciding what other people could survive. The frightened woman who had kissed me in a blackout. The reluctant fiancé from the photograph. Or the woman who had finally surrendered a piece of her mother's empire rather than surrender the life she claimed she wanted with me. One last kiss, she had promised that first night. Then I'll let you leave. She had been wrong. The kisses had never been the reason I could not leave. It was the tea, the emergency room, the terrible coffee, Sophia asleep in a diner booth while Vivienne held my hand beneath the table. It was 4 years of being remembered by someone who had made forgetting her own needs into a profession. But love was not a locked door. Love could not survive if only one person controlled the key. I turned the lock. And before I opened the door, I heard a woman's voice from the hallway, not Vivienne S. Lee Ortiz. My hand froze. Sophia stepped closer. The woman knocked a 3rd time. I'm here on behalf of Malcolm Cross, she said. There is something you need to see before Vivienne reaches you. I looked at the clock. 11:54 p.m., 6 minutes before midnight. And somewhere in the city, Vivienne was still trying to come home. Would you open the door or wait for Vivienne first?